Hey you! Yes, you! If you or someone you know made a popular, or a semi-popular, or even a barely remembered TV show in the past, now's the time to bring it back. TV shows from 10, 20, 30 years ago have been rebooted and continued in recent years. Gilmore Girls, Boy Meets World, The Twilight Zone, Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Magic School Bus, Full House, Roseanne, Will and Grace, Murphy Brown, Mystery Science Theater 3000 again, Saved by the Bell, Punky Brewster, iCarly, Animaniacs, Head of the Class, Dexter, Sex and the City, and the list is only gonna get longer. We've got planned continuations of stuff like Frasier, Daria, The Proud Family, Alf, for goodness sake. And these aren't just remakes, which are also incredibly common. Oh no, these are some combination of reboot and continuation. And it's here that I want to begin, because the idea of continuing a TV show that had been canceled decades previously isn't as new as you might think, and by examining this phenomenon, we might get a glimpse into the future of TV. So let's start with this. 1. The origins of TV nostalgia. No, the mining of nostalgic properties isn't something that the 21st century thought up. Remember that the 1950s were the first decade where TV sets were in common use across the United States. This meant that, per the nostalgia cycle, about 20 years later, we got our first burst of nostalgic reunion specials and reboot TV series, as shows from the 50s and 60s that people watched when they were children suddenly became nostalgia fuel. Father Knows Best, which was canceled in 1960, had a reunion in 1977. The Western Maverick, canceled in 62, had a reunion film in 1978. Perry Mason, Ozzie and Harriet, Gilligan's Island, The Addams Family, Dragnet, The Beverly Hillbillies, all of these TV series returned in the form of TV movies to satisfy audiences' interest in seeing their beloved series once again. And, for the most part, they were pretty terrible. I mean, maybe terrible is a bit harsh. There is a certain pleasure to watching a team of robots visit Gilligan's Island to face off in a game of basketball against the Harlem Globetrotters. I will not deny this. But back in the early decades of the medium, most popular television was just kind of unambitious. TV was largely formulaic and unchallenging. Shows tended to be comforting and friendly, but the folks making television were often playing things safe and sticking with tried and true stories and genres that they knew would please audiences. And that lack of ambition shows in many of these early TV show continuations. When we reunite with the cast of Gilligan's Island in 1978, more than a decade after their show was canceled, they're still exactly where we left them. Not just stuck on an island, but stuck in a cheap 1960s sitcom with corny jokes, a laugh track, and one-note characterizations. There's no desire to give us a new perspective on these characters, to look critically at the original show, or to mark the passage of time in anything but the most rudimentary way. In 1981, the Beverly Hillbillies are right where we left them in 1971. To continue one of these shows meant to return back to where they were and revisit them where we left them. But then, in the 1980s, all of that changed, and a major revolution in television began, as such revolutions often do, in seemingly the most innocent and unlikely of places.
The Brady Bunch, the Brady Bunch, that's the way we became the Brady Bunch.
2. The Brady's Changed TV. The Brady Bunch was, for anyone who doesn't know, a cultural institution the likes of which television had never seen before and will almost certainly never see again. Airing from 1969 to 1974, it featured the exploits of a family with 6 children going on silly adventures. Adventures like the kids forming a musical group to compete in a talent contest, one of the kids stealing a goat, the family maid being replaced with her identical twin cousin, the kids being cursed by an ancient Hawaiian tiki necklace, the family being locked in the prison of an old ghost town by an elderly prospector. You know, classic sitcom staples like that. They produced 117 episodes of The Brady Bunch, which were then rerun over and over and over and over again through the decades, making them a cultural touchpoint for multiple generations of children. For comparison, they've rebooted the Ninja Turtles 3 times in the past 10 years. That's a new Ninja Turtles about every 3 years. That means that 3 siblings born 5 years apart could have grown up with completely different Ninja Turtles. Now imagine that as a child in 1997, you're watching these same episodes of television that your parents watched when they were children. Not just the same franchise, not just the same show, but the same episodes, hearing the same dialogue, laughing at these same jokes. That's kind of bonkers, right? And that's a big reason why the Brady Bunch kept getting sequel series. First, the Brady Bunch kids saw the family befriend a magical bird named Merlin and 2 racially problematic panda bears whose names I will not say. Then the Brady Bunch Hour saw the family move to California to perform in a variety show with their next-door neighbor, Rip Taylor. Then a new sitcom, The Brady Brides, followed 2 of the Brady daughters as they got married and started their own families. The Bradys got together to be in a Christmas special. Then they were in an hour-long drama series where the now-adult Brady children were forced to deal with alcoholism, learning to live with disability, infertility, blackmail, dating a man 10 years older than you, eminent domain, running for political office, and can you believe this show only lasted 6 episodes? It was a lot, and certainly it was motivated by attempts to wring more money from the Brady brand, but what I find fascinating about all these shows is how these reunions really paved the way for what we think of today as a uniquely modern phenomenon, the reboot. 3. The reboot. Whereas earlier TV continuations were content with revisiting nostalgic intellectual properties, thawing them out of cryogenic stasis and letting us return to the characters as they originally existed, completely unchanged, the Brady Bunch never did the same thing twice. The original concept, a mixed family with 3 boys and 3 girls of various ages, was continually pushed, transformed, turned on its head, recontextualized, and revised. The idea of the Brady family headlining a weekly variety show is notoriously stupid and has been quite rightly ridiculed for years, but it's ambitious, and it's radical.
He is the first architect to have his own variety television show.
Taking 2 of the now-adult children and placing them in a domestic, odd couple-esque sitcom may not seem terribly novel, but acknowledging the passage of time and continuing a narrative in this way was something that was unique. And then, in the 1990s, we saw these characters, who we've known since they were children in the 1960s, face off against serious, contemporary adult issues. Whether or not the show was any good, and for the record, it wasn't, this was an example of a new form of storytelling. Oh, and because there's absolutely nowhere else that I can put this, I need to point out here that in its 6-episode run, the Bradys had not 1, not 2, but 3 different theme songs, the third of which featured this lyric, and I quote, "When our children were small, their problems all were smaller. As they changed, so did their point of view. The world has taken on a larger meaning since the family grew. Please, if you take nothing else from this video, carry with you the fact that this television series exists, and never let anyone take that away from you." But back to the point I was making. Ahem. Forget about Boyhood, the movie that was filmed over the course of 12 years. This was an example of a story that was being written and performed over the course of 20 years. It wasn't planned, it wasn't coherent, it wasn't good, but it was the beginning of something huge. As we've established, over the past few years, we've gotten more and more Brady Bunch style long-form narratives cropping up. Boy Meets World, which started in 1993, saw a sequel series, Girl Meets World, end its run in 2017. 24 years from start to finish, nearly a quarter of a century dramatizing the lives of these characters, growing up, going through puberty, dating, attending college, getting married, starting careers, and having children. Gilmore Girls, starting in the year 2000, following a teenage Rory's relationship with her mother, was the subject of a 4-part Netflix miniseries in 2017, with Rory now older than her mother was in the original series. And that's bonkers, not just because it marks the passage of time in a way that makes me very uncomfortable, but because this type of long-form storytelling was something that was typically the subject of novels and plays, maybe films that spanned multiple decades, but not television. And it's becoming more and more of a norm. Networks and streaming platforms are increasingly desperate for established pieces of intellectual property with name recognition that they can grab some publicity for rebooting. This means that we've got Punky Brewster, a homeless orphan from the 1980s, navigating motherhood, and a generational story of how Zach Morris's son traverses high school. And yes, on the one hand, no one is going to accuse something like Fuller House of being a groundbreaking masterpiece of television art. It's lazy and it's pretty dumb, but it also represents a storytelling power that is unique to television, the capacity for a narrative to span from 1987 to 2020, 33 years. And we are now at a turning point, I think. In an era where TV reboots and continuations are so common that they're almost mundane, could we begin to see TV shows built from the ground up with such a continuation in mind? Could we have TV shows that are designed so that in the following decades, their characters and plotlines could be revisited and re-examined in real time? Could we watch characters be born, grow up, die in more or less real time? Wait. Okay, hold on. No, Yep, I think I just invented the soap opera. Yeah, is that the point I'm making? That the modern landscape of TV shows has just, in the year 2022, managed to catch up to soap operas?
4.
Soap operas are the future. Yeah, I think I am. Soap operas, which are rarer now than they once were, tell continuous stories with a coherent continuity over the course of, in some cases, more than half a century. Forget about Gilmore Girls. Some of these characters have been going for 30, 40, 50 years. And look, I doubt many folks are going to come out and say that soap operas are some high watermark of storytelling excellence, but they're ambitious in a way that modern mainstream television shows are just starting to catch up with. We're gonna get to a point where a Vince Gilligan or a Benioff and Weiss or a Duffer Brothers decide to do something like this intentionally. Richard Linklater is already topping Boyhood by making a movie that's gonna take him 20 years to film. Mainstream, long-form storytelling is already happening, and it's happening mostly by accident. So when somebody finally decides to do it on purpose, the results are going to be pretty interesting. In the meantime, I hope you found some of this interesting, and if you'd like to see an investigation into Dan Harmon's use of rhetoric in the TV show Community, or definitive proof that the Star Wars sequel trilogy is actually pretty good, those videos are already up on my channel, and I hope you'll consider checking them out and maybe subscribing. I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.